Hi, Maureen. Hey, Kath.
Hi, folks. So we're on live as we're waiting for folks to sign in. Hi, everyone. We are live, being recorded, but we're still waiting, I think, for Representative Cardone. And then we'll start with introductions. So hang on. All right. I think we've got everybody signed in. I want to welcome everybody. My name is Kathy Breen. Welcome to Orientation Day 2 for the Joint Standing Committee on Appropriations and Financial Affairs. I'll go over the agenda in a moment. To start, I would like to acknowledge that we are new at the Zoom thing compared to the rest of the remote universe, and this is our second committee meeting on Zoom. And so I want to thank everybody who has been working feverishly behind the scenes to get us up and ready and get us fully accessible remotely. Thank you to all the IT people, all the OPLA people, and certainly to our staff in OFPR. A lot of people that are not me or my co-chair have done a lot of work to get us ready for today. So thank you to everybody. Why don't we start with introductions, and let's start with Representative Corey.
Hi, I'm Patrick Corey. I represent House District 25 in Windham.
Representative Hymanson.
I'm Representative Patty Hymanson. I represent House District 4, which is parts of York, Wells, Sanford, and all of Ogunquit.
Representative Fecteau.
Good afternoon. I'm Justin Fecteau. I represent House District 86, which is part of Augusta.
Representative Fay.
I'm Representative Jessica Fay. I represent House District 66, which is parts of the towns of Raymond, Poland, and Casco.
Representative Arata.
Hello, my name's Amy Arata, and I represent District 65, which includes the other part of Poland and New Gloucester.
Representative Cloutier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am Kristen Cloutier. I represent House District 60, which is part of Lewiston.
Representative Millet.
Hi, I'm Soren Millet. I represent House District 71, which includes the towns of Norway, Sweden, Waterford, and West Paris.
Representative Martin.
Hi, John Martin, House District 151, all of Western Aroostook County.
And Senator Davis.
Yes, I'm Paul Davis, and I represent Senate District 4, which is all of Piscataquis County, in fact, Somerset and Penobscot.
Senator Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Donna Bailey. I represent Senate District 31, which is Saco, Old Orchard Beach, Hollis, Leamington, and part of Buxton.
And my co-chair, Representative Peirce.
Thank you. I'm Teresa Peirce, House Co-Chair of AFA, and I represent the majority of Falmouth, House District 44.
And again, my name is Kathy Breen. I'm the Senate Chair of APROPS, and I represent 6.5 communities in Cumberland County. Our committee is ably helped today by our analyst, Maureen Dawson, and our clerk, Marianne McMaster. As folks can see, the agenda today consists mainly of more orientation materials that we were not able to get to back in December in our first meeting. And much of what you're going to, most of whom you're going to hear today, I think everybody actually, is from OFPR. We're going to have Luke Lazur, who worked for Health and Human Services for some time and has since been the point person in OFPR on the HHS budget. And we're going to hear from Maureen Dawson on some more important stuff for our committee as a whole, and then from Chris Nolan, who is the director of OFPR. So I am going to turn it over. Let me make sure I have my proper screen in front of me, which I don't. So hang on one second. Just want to get the agenda up in front of me, pardon me. All right, so we're going to start with Maureen and then go to Luke and then go to Chris. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Maureen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, we're kind of going to pick up where we left off at the end of the last orientation. But I just wanted to say that the last time I started off, I told you all a secret, but the next thing I knew, it was all over YouTube. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go right into the orientation and skip anything. I'll tell you all later what my secret was. I'm going to try to share a screen. And we will be starting off with legislative oversight of expenditures. So as you recall, when we left off, the AFA committee had passed a budget, worked the table, did their other bills, and the legislature, the full legislature, they appropriate and allocate, and they adjourn, sign, and die, among other things. I don't want to characterize that as all they do. So meanwhile, so back at the executive branch, so they have to take that budget and they turn it into work programs. They take all of the spending bills, all of your budgets, and they have to create a plan for how to spend it. And they do quarterly allotments that are based on those work programs. So an allotment is basically each agency's program budget by fund, your other special revenue, general fund, et cetera, and by line category, personal services, all other, capital, and they divvy it up by quarter. And they do that so the controller knows what expenditures may be authorized, so they don't exceed your budget for general fund or available resources for other special revenue or federal, or they don't spend all the money before the year runs out. So it's pretty much like most budgets. But no plan is perfect, so they do this great work plan, but spending patterns may change, or contracts may be encumbered earlier than they expected when they did the plan. They may get an unexpected boost in other special revenue, or they want to spend some money that was carried over from a prior year. They get a grant. Stuff happens. So thank goodness there is financial orders, because they are the workhorses of state fiscal management. A financial order is a legal document that's used by the department or agency to either establish allotment, that initial work plan, revise it when stuff happens. They use it to transfer fund between accounts, transfer funds between categories in the same account. For example, going from moving money from all other to personal services, or moving money from all other to capital, or establish temporary positions. You, AFA, you have authority to review financial orders, and that is set in statute. So you, among other things, you review financial orders that are submitted to OFPR. And you may meet monthly or as often as is necessary by the chairs in order to review those financial orders. So some things you should know about financial orders. Title 5 has provisions for what can and can't be done by financial order, and specifies various waiting period, which is either 30 days or upon approval by the governor. The 30-day waiting period makes those financial orders subject to review by AFA. And I have to emphasize that review doesn't mean approval. Now, you don't really get a chance to say no to a financial order, but they are subject to your review, and you can certainly use the bully pulpit if there's something that in a financial order that bothers you. For example, there was one financial order years ago that I believe it was the Department of Public Safety wanted to buy an airplane with some money they had. And AFA was not happy about that particular purchase, and they met. It was during the interim, and they brought in the commissioner and talked about that. And then eventually the executive branch decided not to use that fund for buying an airplane, and they rescinded the financial order. So you do have influence. You just can't stop a financial order. And that waiting period at 30-day review, it may be waived by your vote. So sometimes the executive branch has something that would normally take 30 days to become effective after approval. They need it sooner. They ask AFA to vote to waive that 30-day period.
Maureen, can I interrupt you just a second? It's Representative Peirce.
You did. Oh.
Just went straight ahead and did that. We're getting some feedback that maybe people who have linked in to hear this on the main.gov site aren't hearing us. So I'm going to just say that in the hope that either that gets fixed, or are people only supposed to be watching on YouTube?
So yeah, so one or the other. I don't know whether that's coming out of the committee room, but Mandy and Marianne might be able to work on getting that done.
Great.
I'll try.
And
not
if you,
to,
no worries. If you're part of the public, you can certainly go on YouTube. That is up and running and available to watch.
if somebody is opening my door, I have a breaking and entering situation here. People,
Mandy, who's an assistant deputy clerk, just said they are working on the audio.
Okay, great. And somebody's yelling at me through my door now. Hang on a second. Talk among yourselves.
Maureen, put yourself on mute. I will put Maureen on mute.
Yeah.
I always suspected this place was haunted. So where were we? So we're on a waiting period may be waived by an AFA vote. Hopefully there's no echoes on that. So this chart that you actually probably recognize from having read the budget process that was in your packet, I just wanted to draw your attention to that because it's a really cool, it's one of my favorite charts put out by the Bureau of Budget that kind of summarizes the types of financial orders and the waiting periods. So wanted to bring that to your attention because it's wicked cool. So does that mean the fact that you are reviewing financial orders and you may be asked to waive a 30-day wait, does that mean you may be meeting during the summer? Yeah, maybe. That's often up to, of course, the chairs could call the meeting in the interim. And if the executive branch really needs a waiver on a financial order, they may ask the chairs to call a meeting to get that done. So just to manage your expectations here, it's possible you'll be meeting in the summer. Some other things that you should know about financial orders that we receive, well over 700 per year, and it's obviously a lot more than that. I just didn't feel like counting. And we post the 30-day wait financial orders on the OFPR AFA materials website. And Mandy or Marianne will send a notice to AFA that says that they have posted some financial orders. That way, those that are subject to your review can be reviewed by you individually without necessarily having an AFA meeting. Now, if there is a particular financial order you want to discuss in public, or obviously if there's a waiver requested, then you have to meet. But this way you can fulfill your duty to review financial orders without meeting. Now for grins and giggles, we're just going to go over a financial order real fast. And just so you can kind of get the lay of the land on reading one. As soon as I figure out how to new share, let's see. I think I got it. Yep, okay, so this is a financial order from a few years ago. And I will be sending this to you because it's got a cute little sheet that you can use to see what those annotations are. But so I received this financial order. The first thing I do is I look, actually I scroll to the bottom. Watch your eyes, because I'm scrolling. I don't know about you, but when I see a scroll on screen, I get dizzy. So I go down to the bottom just because I go, oh, that is a 30-day wait financial order. That's interesting. And I can tell right off this one is related to the Department of Marine Resources. So scrolling back up, watch your eyes. So I look, and first thing I'm looking at is what type of financial order it is. This particular financial order is asking for an increase in allotment. And I look over here and I see this 014, which when you have your cheat sheet, you'll know that means it's an other special revenue fund. And here's the name of the fund, non-federal grants. That's the name of the other special revenue fund. This section here is telling the state controller that it's okay to spend this increase in allotment, some in personal services and some in all other. So the controller knows that this bill can be paid and it's authorized by the governor, and it's in keeping with all of the rules, regulations, and laws. So the controller sees that and goes, yep, I can spend that money. And the work program we talked about has been amended. It's been revised to allow for additional spending in this account. So we're scrolling down some more, and we see the statement of fact, which is really a wealth of information, and it's really talking to the governor who has to approve this financial order, and it's talking to you, the committee, to tell you what this financial order is about. And what it says is they received funding from this entity, Atlantic States Marine Fisheries, to do some stuff. So they got extra money, and because it's not from the federal government, this money, which is specific to a source and specific use, was in an other special revenue fund. So they got that money, and they also are telling the governor that if this financial order isn't approved, they don't have sufficient resources to fund the thing that the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission wants them to do and gave them money for. They have the money, but if they don't get permission to spend it through this change in the work plan, they won't be able to do the thing that they were asked to do. So that's all very good information. So scroll down there, there's that, and there's that we already looked at. So is there any questions about just looking at a file? Oh, here's the cheat sheet you're going to get. That tells you the type of request, indicates a little funds. There's not a complete list of funds, but it's most of them that you're going to see. And then just this is a cheat sheet on that. And just a really brief thing about the current situation. Due to the COVID emergency, the governor did do an executive order that said, while the legislature was back in March, it had adjourned, and there was not a provision for AFA to meet at first because there was not the ability to do the electronic participations, and they hadn't worked out those hybrid meetings that your chair had talked about in the past. So there was an executive order that said there's certain conditions that would normally a financial order would be 30 days wait. We're going to have them effective immediately. We need to spend some COVID money. We need to move some money around. So that was part of their emergency executive order. And we, OFPR, posted those on the website. You know how I said we normally post your 30-day wait so you can look at them. We posted all the COVID, and we're still doing that. All the COVID relief type financial orders. And Chris will show you where you can find that when he goes over the website. So just want to say it. So now I'm going to try to go back. I don't know if I can do it.
So Maureen, are you, you would like to see right now if there are questions on the financial order thing before you move
Because
on?
we are pretty much done with financial orders. Yep.
Okay, so any questions for Maureen on financial order processes, content, any of that? And I'm just realizing, Maureen, could you unshare your screen so that I can see the rest of the committee? Thank you. So are there questions for Maureen on financial orders? I am not seeing any. Representative Peirce, am I correct? There are none. Okay.
So either there's no questions or everybody's asleep. We can't tell. Certainly, as you see financial orders, and I completely encourage you, if there's any that you have a question about or issue with, see Mary Ann or Mandy or myself, and we can tell you who the analyst is that's related to that and get more information.
Also, I asked Mandy last year, who works in OFPR, to develop a binder of just COVID-related financial orders. So I have a hard copy of all of those in a notebook if anybody is interested. It's on my desk in AFA.
Wow, it's good to know. All right, are you all set, Madam Chair?
Yes, thank you.
I'll try to get back. All right, I think I got it. So you may ask, is a financial order your only tool for financial oversight? Well, okay, you can ask that, and no, there are other tools. You've got statutes that prohibit certain actions. You've got statutes and law that, for lack of a better term, pre-authorize certain actions that would normally be a 30-day wait financial order. You have reporting requirements, you have your state audit, and you have OPEGA. So let's just go through those briefly. Statutes prohibiting certain actions. So here's a proactive tool, and it's like the granddaddy of statutes of this sort, because it prohibits any department or agency from spending money that wasn't appropriated. Remember, appropriations are general funds. So it says you can't spend general fund money that wasn't appropriated by the legislature. You can't, for example, you can't let a contract out to buy $12 million worth of carpet remnants for the marine resources if the money isn't there. So, and if you do, then you have committed a crime. So that's a pretty hefty statute, and I think it shows how seriously the legislature took their prerogative to be the ones to appropriate and spend, and take seriously how to keep that budget balanced. It's something that the executive branch, in my experience and observation, they take that extremely seriously as well. The whole system of financial orders, budgeting, work plans are all to make sure that the budget's balanced, and that the legislature's priorities are the ones that are spent by the executive branch. There's also statutes that pre-review financial orders, and I'll give you an example here is that there's in statute, they allow TANF program account monies to be transferred to this SPIRE TANF program account between two programs without a financial order that's a 30-day wait. And there are several examples of this, and many times there are laws passed that allow, for example, funds to be transferred between Riverview and Riverview and Dorothea Dix without a financial order that's a 30-day wait. There's laws about moving personnel in the Department of Corrections between facilities. And the legislature has done this mainly to give the executive branch some flexibility to move quickly for funding needs, especially within an agency. So those are just some examples of you saying, yes, we have oversight. We're handing over some of that responsibility right back to the agencies, knowing that, number one, you won't abuse it, and number two, that you need that flexibility. So reporting requirements, another tool, very useful tool, but too much of a good thing can create some clutter. And it's just a little bit of a cautionary note that it's easy to create reports, but that you're probably aware that it does create a lot of work for the executive branch. So, and it creates work for you. You're getting all of these reports, some of which you may not in the end really have needed. And you're sometimes creating reports for future AFA committees to get that by the time they get it, it may not be the issue that it was when the requirement for reporting was created. So that's just a little, but I have noticed that over the last 5-6 years, there have been fewer reports required by AFA to AFA. I think there's some recognition that if you hone down what you get for reports, you can focus on what you need to a little bit better. But it is a tool, and it's a useful tool, and I've seen it do, a world of good, especially when you want to get an in-person report from an agency about an initiative or a pilot program, et cetera, that you created that you're not sure how it's going to perform. So I counted there are over 90 ongoing reports due to the AFA, and since about the last 10 years, there have been over 100 one-time reports due to AFA. Like I say, that's a little bit decreasing over time. A good example of an ongoing report is out-of-state travel reports. Back in 1991, the legislature said that they want to see from agencies and departments what out-of-state travel activity is for them. So they created a reporting requirement. And those reports are summarized and posted on the OFPR website. And the reason they're summarized is that you're getting a report quarterly from every agency just about in the state. And it's a huge bunch of paper. So we summarize them, Mandy and Marianne, they post them on the website for you to kind of look at and see, is there something weird? There's something I want to look at. And of course, they're available for you to look at any individual report anytime you want to. So do let us know. And I encourage you to take a look at that. I think Chris will probably show you where that is when he goes over the web page. That's just one of many. And there are some ongoing reports that look a little dated. So at some point, maybe you want to look at those and eliminate some if you really don't need them anymore. 2 more tools and then we're done. Department of Audit, they are actually a tool of financial oversight. Their responsibility is to audit financial statements, the state of Maine, and expenditures of federal programs. And this is both helpful to you, AFA, to the whole legislature, and also helpful to the federal government, who counts on that to be assured that the state of Maine is policing themselves on federal money to make sure it's not spent in a way that violates the rules and regulations that accompany that money, and keeps them from having to audit directly necessarily. So it's does multiple things. The audits, it actually is pretty interesting to look through. You'll get those, and I'm sure you'll read them cover to cover. So that not only does the state auditor produce the audit, but they are required to report in person to AFA any significant discrepancies they find during the course of the audit. So they would, in fact, almost interrupt an audit and say, okay, this is very serious. I haven't seen this happen, but we found this and you should know about it right away. They're also required to schedule a meeting every year to go over the questioned costs and material weaknesses if they find any in-state programs. OPEGA, they staff the Government Oversight Committee, and most of you have either been on it, are on it, or will be on the Government Oversight Committee, so I probably don't have to tell you a whole lot about this, but OPEGA conducts reviews and programs and activities and evaluates compliance with laws, regulations, policies, and procedures, and their work plan is governed by the Oversight Committee, but certainly there are procedures for requesting OPEGA reviews through the Government Oversight Committee. So that is one of a tool of AFA, and of course a tool of the legislature for their oversight. To make a long story short, let's just go through that. You've got, oh, not statute, you've got statutes, you've got audits, reports, and reviews, and you've got OFPR. So we do reports for you. We help you find reports. We'll answer questions. We do have access to the accounting system, so we can sometimes get you latest information on expenditures or balances or whatever else you need. So as a very good example of OFPR helping you as your financial oversight would be Luke's reports on main care spending, which he is going to present to you as the next item on your agenda. So I'm going to unshare. I think that's Luke, by the way, and we know who that is. I'm going to unshare the screen and stop for, with the chair's permission, any questions.
Thank you very much, Maureen. You know, if I didn't know better, I'd say you've been doing this screen sharing thing for a long, long time.
Well, the first one I did was a meeting with you. Then thank you for making me do it.
You've definitely upped your game.
Thank you.
So are there any questions from the committee about what Maureen just went over before we transition over to Luke? Representative Hymanson.
Thank you. The issue of reports, there's so many of them, and the thread is always that there's something in there that we should know and we should have reviewed and we should have seen.
Yeah.
But there are so many of them that it's hard to really know that. So what is a good process for reviewing all of those reports?
That's an excellent question. I really wish I had an answer. I think sometimes in the AFA committee, there are people who are specializing in certain areas. If that's the case, then you definitely want to read a report in an area that your caucus has asked you to pay special attention to. So that would be one, and then alert the rest of the caucus if there's something in there that's an issue. We also read the reports. Obviously, the analyst that's got the area that the report covers will look at that. So if there's something really egregious in there, the analyst will likely draw your attention to that. There are some reports that I think, I'll tell you, okay, I am going to tell you a secret. I sent a report out to the whole AFA committee many years ago, and I forgot to attach the report. Nobody said, hey, Maureen, where's the attachments? So I think there are some reports that really have gone by the wayside and aren't scrutinized very carefully. So, and I think that's natural. Something that was very important, and I'll give you an example of that. I think they're still on the books that they're supposed to report on total quality management spending, even though total quality management was taken off the books, the reporting requirement somehow stayed. So there are, but it doesn't get done because there's nothing to report. So there are some reports that do fall by the wayside. Others, you are waiting for bated breath. So and you will know what those are. So just looking at, you can sometimes judge a report by the title. So that's not a very good answer. I hate to tell anybody not to pay attention to a report, but I would definitely be looking at the ones that you asked for, the one-time reports, and also the ones that are within your specialty if you have one. That help?
Thank you.
Any other questions for Maureen? Okay, I don't see any. Thank you, Maureen. And now we're going to transition over to Luke Lazur. For folks who are new to the AFA committee, Luke is up on the second floor in AFA in the OFPR office. Of course, he's not there now or won't be there anytime soon. But when we are back, Luke is upstairs and is super, super knowledgeable and helpful about anything related to health and human services. So Luke, why don't you take it away, and we'll take questions from the committee when you finish up.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. And thanks for that introduction. Now I have something to live up to. So let me now start sharing my screen. So I was brought here to discuss specifically the Medicaid expenditures and caseload update. This is a file that I send generally monthly. Sometimes it's every other month. It sort of depends on when I get the information. Sometimes it takes a little while for the information to make its way to me. This starts with information that I get directly from the department. What I've been trying to do is taking that information and trimming it down in an email form to at least give you some idea of what sort of information is in the reports that I attach. Because the reports that I attach, as you'll see when I get down to them, is quite extensive, and there's a lot of information there. So what I try to do in email form is at least outline what the basic information you'll see in the reports are. I really started doing this due to COVID. That was what started me taking a little more time to look at all this information and try and nail it down for you. But I think this is something I'm going to continue to do because I think it's helpful for you as a committee to just get sort of the highlights. And as you're looking at this report, I'm going to just sort of highlight for you some of the key pieces of information, though, of course, everything here is very important. I wrote it all, so it's very good stuff, but I'll give you the highlights. This was the most recent email I sent, which came in November, and it had data through September. So that means it's the caseload information through the end of September, and there's also expenditure information through the end of September. So I'll start with a little bit on the caseload, which is the membership within the main care program. You'll see here that since March, which is obviously when COVID came to our country, there have been 4,700 new members on main care each month since then. That number has decreased a bit in the last couple of months that we had, the most recent months we had. August and September were under 4,000, which was really the first time it had been under 4,500 members since March. So we're keeping an eye on this information because we're just trying to see what the trend is looking like. I'll note that before COVID came along, we were seeing about 1,200 members a month, and most of that increase was due to the Medicaid expansion that started in January of 2019. There is another report I'm going to go over in a bit that has a little more information about this, so we'll be talking about this some more, but this is the basic information that I get in the report I'm able to send you every month. Next, we'll look a little bit at the expenditures in the program. So the average weekly expenditure through the end of March of 2020 was at about 61.4 million. That average weekly cycle has increased by the end of September to 63 million. So that's about a $1.5 million increase on average each week. I should point out that that 1.5 million is not necessarily all due to COVID. There are lots of things that impact that average weekly cycle. And honestly, the way that it's calculated throughout the year, it goes up a bit anyway, because there are some payments that are made in the main care program that are either on a monthly cycle or on, there's a couple of pieces that have a big impact that are a couple times a year. And so the weekly cycle is going to go up a bit during the year in every year. But this is a pretty big increase in a fairly short period of time. And I am sure that there is a COVID impact here. Without the actual claims data, which I do not have access to, I can't get into any detail about how much that impact may be. But this does at least give you some idea of what's happening within the program. I'll also note at the bottom of the email that when I do a new quarterly report, which is what we'll be talking about in a bit, I do put that information on the bottom of the email, so you can click on that and go see the quarterly information that I provide, which is more detailed than this one sheet that I have here. Next, I just want to show you the actual files that I send so that you can see them in detail. So first, this is the expenditure file I receive. I'll just slowly scroll so you can see this is quite a big file. It has lots of information. But we're going to focus a little bit more on this in a bit. I have a file that trims this down quite a bit, because what I'll say about this is, first, you'll see that up top here, these are all the main care accounts, and this top piece is the general fund. So these accounts at the top are the ones that you will most likely focus on when you're looking at this report, because what you're most concerned about is the general fund, because that's the money that has been appropriated in the budget. Everything below this are generally allocations to other from other special revenue, or in some cases up here, there is some Fund for Healthy Maine information here as well. So really this area is what tends to be focused on, and we'll get to that in a bit. This file that gets sent is 4 pages long. So that's the first page. And then there are 2 pages that just give you more detail on the total amount spent by account. It just shows you where the money each cycle went. The cycle in main care is every week, all the expenditures that are to be paid go through at one time in this weekly cycle, and it's all the activity that came through from the claims system. That's really the big piece of all the Medicaid spending that's done in main care. This file just breaks each weekly cycle down. I don't know that I've ever gotten questions about this piece of the report, but it's here, so I wanted you to know what it was. And this last page is simply showing you how much each cycle was. It's a useful tool to just sort of see where cycles are going. You'll note that there are large cycles every now and then. That happens because the monthly payments that go through, there are certain accounts that pay only monthly. Those happen once a month, and you'll see a spike in the cycle in those weeks. So here is the trimmed down version of that first expenditure page we looked at. So as I said, this is just the general fund accounts. I also removed a few columns so I could make it look a little bigger, but I wanted to show you these green highlighted columns here. This is last year. So this information is final through the end of state fiscal year 2020, and this gives you some idea of what happened last year. This first column, the appropriation allocations, that was the total amount appropriated to these main care accounts by the legislature. The next column, allotment, is the total amount of funding that was available in all these counts by the end of the year. The reason you'll see a difference here is funding can be carried forward from previous years money can be moved around in the accounts, and you might end up with allotments that are very different from what the original appropriations were. So this allotment is the key number because that is the amount of funding that is available for them to spend within these main care accounts before the end of the year. The next column, expenditures, shows you what actually got spent during state fiscal year 2020 by account, and the total down here of 840 million. So what you'll see when you look at that is the allotment was 970 million. They spent 840 million. So there was $130 million of unexpended funds in the main care accounts at the end of state fiscal year 2020. So that gives you an idea of what 2020 looked like. Now you can see these columns that have the brown heading are the current year. And again, the first column is the total that was appropriated by the legislature, 954 million. The next column is the allotment as of right now, which, as you'll see, is 864 million. The big difference here is in the largest account. I want to scroll over so you can actually see that account. This is the 0147 payments to providers account within main care. This account is the biggest account. It's where a lot, if not most, of the activity goes through. These other accounts are, you can see you have nursing facilities. Down below, there are some of the waivers. But this MAP account is where the vast majority of the activity happens. And you'll see that that account, the appropriated amount was 526 million, but the allotment's 436 million. This relates to a financial order that would have decreased the allotment in this account. And I'm sure that this is something that you'll notice as part of the supplemental budget, I'm guessing, because this was a decrease in allotment because they're planning not to spend that funding as of right now. So that's something to look for when the supplemental budget comes around. The next column, this year-to-date expenditures, it tells you what the expenditures actually have been through the current cycle. So this is cycle 14 of 53, which was done on October 3rd, 2020. And this just shows you all the expenditures at that point in time. The next two columns are useful because they have the average allotment per week and the average expenditures per week. So what you can see there is the average allotment is 16.3 million. The average expenditures are currently 15.1. So that tells you that they're spending less than what's allotted as of right now on a weekly basis. So that's how this report is utilized. And you will be getting this, like I said, on about a monthly basis. I'll give you that initial document that will give you some of the basic information. And then this is the full report. And obviously, if you're trying to go through it and some of this isn't sinking all in because there's a lot of columns here, there's a lot to see, please come see me or call me. We can discuss at any time. The last piece of this file that I send monthly is this main care caseload document. You'll see it goes back to state fiscal year 2019 on here. It's all of, or most of 2019, all of 2020, and then the first quarter of 2021. I always keep 2 years on here. This file actually, and you will get the Excel version of this file, you don't just get the PDF. If you want to, you can unhide numerous columns and go much farther back and see what the caseload was. But I find that the most recent 2 years are the most useful for the purposes you have. So what this does is you'll see the column here, total. This total column gives you what the total main care caseload is at any given month. You can see currently it's at 331,128. Then what you have are multiple columns that give you the different groupings that have been identified in DHHS. So traditional Medicaid is the largest group that has the vast majority of the people that are included in main care. There is a separate column for Medicaid expansion, and this is the expansion that began January of 2019. So you can see how many are in it, but you can also see by quickly looking just how it's increased over time. The next column is the Cub Care column, and I'm now noticing that somehow, sorry, here's the problem. I just realized. Okay, this Medicaid expansion column is actually part of the CHIP program. And it's something I've wrestled with because I don't create the report. It comes directly from the department. One of the pieces of the CHIP program is Cub Care. And another piece was an expansion that was done that they call Medicaid expansion. So these two columns here are the CHIP program, the Children's Health Insurance Program. So that does get a little confusing when we're looking at this report. Even though I look at it every month, I still get confused by that. So this next column here is the Medicare Savings Program, which is also called MSP. You'll probably hear about that. It's usually discussed at some point during the budget process. And DEL, which is drugs for the Maine elderly. This just gives you a full amount of everyone who's in those programs. Then the last column, this is the new Medicaid expansion program that started, you can see here, January of 2019, and you can see where we're at now with almost 65,000 individuals in that program, and you can see its growth. All of these columns are described down below in the report. So you don't need to remember that. It's always there for you. So those are the monthly reports that are sent by the department. But I also wanted to show you the reports that I do on a quarterly basis. And we post on the website, the OFPR website, there's an other fiscal information section. And within that section, you can find these reports, which I find helpful for me to work my way through all of the main care spending. So hopefully you'll find them as helpful. So this first report is specifically the expenditures within main care. I'll show you first the chart at the bottom. This chart here has main care expenditures over the last 3 years. You can see here it's 2019, 20, and 21. And it's at the same point in time. So it's 2019 through 3 months, 2020 through 3 months, and 21 through 3 months, so that you can have an equal comparison and see what's happened over the time. It breaks it out by these expenditure categories. These are helpful in trying to identify what sort of service is going up or going down. These categories match as closely as I could to the main care forecast that the department uses to come up with their budget for main care each year. I had some information I received from them that outlined which accounts were included in each of their categories, and I made these categories match as closely as I could. I wasn't able to get it perfect every time, but in general, this ties out with that document, which I hope is helpful to the department if they ever look at this information. So I don't want to talk about everything that's here. I just want to give you a feel for what this does. It's set up to be the same each quarter so that you can read it the same every quarter. It first just tells you how much spending increased in this quarter from last year to this year. And then if there's a big change, which as you can see from 2020 to 2021, it increased by 107 million. I then will usually go through and explain why this happened. So as you can see here, that $107 million increase, a big piece of it is Medicaid expansion expenses. That was a big piece of it. And there's a chart below that shows that. There also were other rate increases and program changes during the 129th legislature that increased in 2021. So this 107 million looks like a big number, but it's fully expected based on what has gone on in the legislature in the last couple of years. This next section also lays out what's going on in the general fund. And so here you can see that it says that general fund expenditures through these 3 same months decreased by 23%, which works out to about 66.2 million. And you can see that number right down here. So that when I first did this particular report, I had to spend a good bit of time on this because you have the overall expenditures going up 100 million, but you have the general fund going down 66 million. That normally wouldn't be the case, but there are 2 very good reasons why that happened this particular quarter. First, Last year, in the first quarter, there were a number of transfers done that increased the general fund spending in the main care accounts. And it was all due to multiple disallowances of at the Riverview Psychiatric Center disproportionate share funding. This was a issue that cropped up many years ago, and it led to the state having to pay back the federal government quite a large amount of money. And the remainder of that payment was done in the first quarter of last year. And so the general fund expenditures were up by a significant amount due to that. The second thing that also showed in the decrease was the COVID pandemic. A part of the COVID pandemic is that there's been a temporary increase to the FMAP during this crisis of 6.2%. So those two items added up accounted for this $66 million decrease in general fund when the overall spending was up 100 million. So I lay all that out, one, to explain the report, to show you how to read it, but I think that's also shows you the kind of information I try and provide in this report so that you have some idea of what's going on in these accounts, because as you can see, these accounts are large. There's a lot of general fund dollars that flow through them each year. We're almost up to $1 billion worth of general fund alone going through these main care accounts. So I think it's a really important area for you guys to be able to quickly see what's going on. I'll just quickly show you, this was one of my exhibits which showed just what the Medicaid expansion spending difference was from state fiscal year 20 to 21. And you can see that alone was 85 million of the 100 million that was up above. I then do also outline other items that accounted for pieces of it, but this piece was the biggest piece by far. This particular exhibit is just something I've been doing ever since Medicaid expansion began, because one of the questions I always get is how much has been spent on it. So here it is from the beginning to now. So it gives you what we've spent by year, by category, ever since inception of Medicaid expansion. So the next report that I do is, again, a quarterly report that I do that is on the Medicaid caseload. And it's similar to what we talked about even in the email, because it's the same information I'm reviewing here. The main thing I wanted to point out in looking at this is that I try and go through and show where the caseload has been going. I'll note that prior to Medicaid expansion, the overall caseload each month had been decreasing. But since Medicaid expansion came along, it's been increasing every single month. I'll just note that in the first quarter of state fiscal year 2021, that caseload increased by over 11,500 persons on average which is about 3,800 per month during that most recent quarter. Over the last 12 months, that increase has been about 3,200 persons per month. So you can just see where we are at now at 3,800 persons per month is more than where we were when it was only Medicaid expansion that was impacting the increase. So that's just more proof that the COVID pandemic is having an impact on the main care caseload. And then included with this particular report, along with that information, are multiple charts that just break out the information in different ways. This chart just shows you the overall caseload by certain groups, which, as you can tell on here, are quite hard to read. They're fairly small to get them in there, but it's the same groups that we saw: traditional Medicaid. In this particular report, I group the CHIP individuals rather than having them in those two separate groups. Then you can see the green here is Medicaid expansion, and then the purple is the MSP and Dell group. This has the same information, but just with the numbers. And then this just breaks the information out a little differently. You'll see this gives a little more detail on who's included in those groups up above. Again, this is something I haven't really had questions about in the past, but I include the information, and in case anyone does have questions, obviously come see me. So I think that is all the information I have to share with you. I imagine there are some questions, and I'm very happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Luke. So we're gonna do this little dance between you not sharing your screen so I can see folks who might have questions, and then I don't know, it might be that they need to go back to one of your charts. So we'll do what we can. Are there questions from committee members for Luke about the material he just presented? Representative Hymanson, and is there anyone else? Should we start a queue? Hymanson, Martin, 1 second. Let me get my list going. Hymanson, Martin, Purse, Fay. What? Is that you, Sawin?
It is.
You want to get in the queue?
Yes,
Okay, your camera is not on. I don't know if you know that.
I noticed that.
Okay. Let me see. Let's see. Okay. All right, that's what I have in the first set. So we'll start there and we'll pick up more as we go along if necessary. So Representative Hymanson.
Just simply, Luke, can this be printed out for us so that our next allotment of whatever we pick up, we have printed out?
Do you mean like each month when the information gets sent, or when that quarterly report is done? Or do you mean the packets, this specific packet that I just went through?
This specific packet.
Yeah, and I have emailed them, and I think they're on our website, so they're definitely available. And hopefully you will find them helpful, because I tried to put them together in a way that would be helpful to you in the future when getting this information.
No, thank you, but it takes substantial resources for me to print it out at home. So if you could print it out, I don't know if anyone else wants it, and whatever allocation of stuff I'm going to be picking up, if that could be in there too.
All right. Yes, that can be done.
Thank you.
Representative Martin?
Yeah, thank you. Look, about 3 charts back, there was, obviously everyone increases whatever percentage, but there was one that said other professionals, and it was a 500% increase.
Right here?
Here it is, 594 other professionals. What happened there?
Boy, it's been a while since I put this together. So I'll have to look back. I know I can see one part of it is if you look in 2019, the number was 6 million and it was only 1.6 last year. So part of it is that there was a big decrease last year, but even beyond that, it goes from 6 in 19 to 11. So I'd have to look back. I think that other professionals does have some monthly, quarterly type payments that are included in it that might be the reason, but I'd have to look back and get back to you on that.
It just stuck out that when I saw that 594. Thanks.
Representative Purse.
Thanks so much, Madam Chair. Representative Martin asked my question. That was my exact question. So thanks.
All right. Representative Fay.
My question is, and I may have answered it myself looking a little bit more closely, do these expenditures include the FMAP, or are they just straight general fund expenditures
Depends which report we're talking about. So since I'm back sharing, so I'll scroll and explain that by going to the different reports. So I know you won't be able to see the numbers, but that's not important here. What I want you to just see is on this report, there is specifically a section at the top that is just general fund. But then you do also have all the other expenditures, including federal at the very bottom, but they're all broken out separately. But if you're talking about the this document, which is the quarterly report I provide, the FMAP is included in the top section. So when you're looking at this, you see at the bottom here, it does say all funds total. So this portion includes all funds, general fund, other special revenue, fund for healthy Maine, and federal funds, federal block grant and federal expenditures. That's all in here. But down at the bottom is a section that breaks out just general fund. it doesn't do it by each category. It does it just in total. And really that's because for the purposes that I have in the past used this information for myself, I need all funds to really answer a lot of questions. So I tend to keep it all together. And I do outline the general fund just so that you can see how much of the overall spending is the general fund. Does that answer your question?
Okay. Before you move on from that, I just want to write down that percentage, 23.1. Thank you. Representative Millet. Representative Millet, I cannot hear you. You might be on mute. I still cannot hear.
You're definitely on mute, Representative Millet. There we go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
And Representative Corey, sorry, Representative Millet. Representative Corey, I did see your hand up. Thank you. Go ahead, Solon.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Great assembling of information that's critical to us, Luke, so thank you for that. I have a couple of questions on the FY 20 and 21 expenditures on the page that you called your streamlined page, which I think is page 9 in your printed doc. And I was wondering if you could just counsel us or advise us as to the unexpended balance in 20 and the change in allotments in 21 as to whether they might relate to the upcoming supplemental for 21. And I'm assuming that potentially some of the unexpended balance in 20 might be carried forward, but I wondered if the difference between the allocation and the allotment in 21 might have been due to curtailment. And if you could take those two questions or two differences and advise me as to whether or not curtailment is a factor in 21 and whether or not the program will be in the black in 21 as you see it at this end of the first quarter, or whether we're looking at a shortfall.
So I do think that the difference between the appropriation in 21 and the allotment in 21 is due to the curtailment. I wanted to go back and look at the different press releases that discussed the curtailment order just to see if I could find this difference in there, because I know that they talked about using a certain amount of funding from main care in the curtailment order. They did also talk about using some funding prior to that. And what I don't know is the unexpended balance in 20, I am positive some portion of that was utilized to essentially make it through state fiscal year 20, but I don't, again, remember exactly how much. I just didn't have time to go back and look at those. So what I can do, Son, is I'll go back and look at the information we've received and see where it ties to these two numbers, because I had the same question for myself just to make sure. But I am pretty sure that you're going to see that this decrease in the 0147 account from the appropriation to the allotment is something that will likely be in the supplemental budget per the curtailment order that had occurred.
Thank you, Luke. Very clear.
Representative Corey, I'm just going to do a follow-up to Representative Millet's question, if I may, before I switch over to you. So, Luke, we saw, I believe, and I'm checking this, two trends with respect to main care and COVID. One is increased enrollment, but also we had decreased utilization because of the time that services, things were locked down, and a lot of healthcare providers were forced to put off providing what we would call elective or, optional type services. And we're only doing emergency kind of services. And then, even as healthcare providers have more opened up, they still are not nearly as productive in billable hours as they are normally. At least that's my understanding. So in following up with Representative Millett's question, is some of this because of decreased utilization as well as curtailment?
I think when you're talking about the unexpended balance in 2019, 2020, there was definitely some of that in there. As I said, one of the hard things for me is that I don't have claims data. I only have this data that is from the accounting system, which is very different information. The accounting system gives a good bit of detail where you can at least identify where the expenditure occurred, when it occurred. But what I don't have is the claims detail behind it to tell me what actual claims have come in and be able to compare year to year. So I can't answer that perfectly, but I know that when I discussed this before with AFA, I did mention that I did believe there was some decrease in expenditures just due to the fact that at least for a couple months, maybe 3, there was not a lot of activity happening within the hospitals and other providers of the services for main care. So I'm sure that is a piece of that unexpended balance in 20. I'm not very comfortable with 21 as far as whether there's any sort of decrease in expenditures in 21 due to that same issue, just because when I look at that data, all I see is a large increase. As I explained in that quarterly document, there are 2 big reasons why there are those increases, but there's still such a large increase that it's hard for me to know if there's any decrease in the current state fiscal year due to that same issue. So hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, thank you. Representative Corey.
I guess my question is along those same sort of lines, sort of like I'm looking at, page 17, which is again, that main care caseload chart and sort of the area that, the green area shown in there. I'm wondering with regard to sort of like what we had projected when we passed main care expansion compared to where we're at right now. Do we have a chart that shows sort of were we supposed to be at approximately 3,200 a month, as sort of mentioned earlier, which is what we were seeing? Were we supposed to go to 3,800 persons a month, or what did we actually plan for?
I will go back and actually get the actual numbers and send that along to the committee, because I don't right in front of me have the actual numbers, but I do know that being at 30, I'd use more of the 3,200 persons per month, because that's the number that includes the time before COVID, which has increased the number more. But I know that the overall number of members is below where it was estimated when the original Medicaid expansion was put in and the funding was provided. I have to look back again as well to see the actual spending and how that compared. But I do believe that at the end of state fiscal year 2020, our actual spending for Medicaid expansion was below the amount that was appropriated.
Right.
So I can look back and give you actual numbers on that as well. But I do know that we were below in both of those things.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just curious where we're at, with regard to what we projected and where we're at. And, I'm sure there's a host of reasons, for all of that, not only COVID, do you know what I mean? But, access to, people signing people up and sort of everything else. I'm just sort of curious how all of that relates to what's actually going on, what we projected versus what's actually going on.
Yep. And I know I can be very safe in saying that in both cases, both number of members and expenditures, we are currently a little below what was projected.
Great. Thanks.
Welcome.
Luke, would you mind unsharing your screen for a second so I can see everybody? Thank you. Are there any other questions for Luke before we move on to Chris Nolan? Not seeing any. So, okay. Luke, thank you very much. And I'm sure there'll be some follow-up questions from different individuals, and certainly more information to come with the supplemental and biennial. All right, I think we have Chris Nolan ready to join us. Thank you, Luke. And Chris, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you can hear me. I just want to say to start that Luke is hopefully coming back in a bit of time to do the Funfelty Maine status. So hopefully he doesn't go too far, because I can't go grab him. Anyway, my name is Chris Nolan. I'm the director of OFPR. I have met a lot of you, but I'm not sure I've met all of you. So hello. And I was supposed to talk to you last time you met, but I got bumped. So as we staff often do, so that's fine. We're always here.
That was my fault. I bumped you, Chris, but
no, we are always here to join
now
in.
We're all ears now. To
fill holes, and that's fine. That's what we're here for. So can I share my screen?
Sure. If you know how.
Thank you, Senator.
I have total faith in you.
So what I'm going to do before I start talking specific numbers is just to give you a brief tour of our website. I assume you all have gotten to the state's website, state legislature's website, which is where I'm starting off. I could get lost in this for 4 or 5 hours, so please let me know when you've had enough, and then we'll get to the status. So we start at this point. I just want to point out a couple of things to you about the legislature-wide page. One is that we've added, about a month ago, we added a new drop-down up here called Member Resources, primarily focused to new members, to just have things like orientation materials, information about the legislature, about the process, about payroll, reimbursements, technology, questions. So that's primarily for new members, but I just wanted to point that out because that is something that is new, and it does have some interesting information in it. If you want to look at that at any given point. I don't think there are any new members on AFA, but and the other thing at this level I wanted to point out is this side over here. It's supposed to be used for the most important news items or information that we want you to know right away. So right now it has a list of the pre-cloture bill lists. And so this point here is where we'll put news, like we put the revenue forecast. Some of it gets so old, we need to update this, so we could drop out the consensus economic forecast. The other thing that's always here is the YouTube channel link to get to all of the different YouTube pages for the committees, and that'll become increasingly important as we move forward with the coming weeks and months. So this is just where we try to put the latest stuff that we think that legislature as a whole will be most interested in going and finding out, like what's the link to the revenue forecasting committee meeting, what are the lists of titles for pre-closure bills, etc. And we need to probably do a better job of cleaning off some of the older stuff, just so it's just the latest news. So that's the rest of this page has the Senate House links. the calendar, committees, larger publications, and then that member resources page. We may be moving the YouTube channel up here, so it's a little easier to access because it's not really the YouTube channel links. It's not really news, so we may be moving it up here to provide its own drop down to access each committee's YouTube page to watch and listen to other committee meetings, as well as appropriations if you're not on the actual Zoom link. So absent any questions, I'll go right into the OFPR pages. So legislative offices, you have Legislative Council, Office of the Executive Director, Revisers, Legislative Information Office, OPLA, OFPR, Law and Legislative Reference Library, and OPEGA. Today we're going to be talking about OFPR. And so within the OFPR page, we have basically these groupings, which is a welcome to OFPR, AFA Committee, Fiscal Information, etc. I'm just going to hit on a little of each of these. We do have in the welcoming the summary of the office functions, which is just a general list of what we do that we primarily use for orientation for other committees when our analysts go to other committees and have a one-pager about what OFPR does. We have a brief history of the office. We have a general picture, that's not a great one to start with, of the staff and what the staff's responsibilities are. You met all of our folks at your last meeting, so this is just something that if you can't remember who we are, what we particular, or if you have a program area like criminal justice. Lauren is out for another couple of weeks, but she will be back probably at the end of January or February, that you can find the person, or you can just call the office and ask Mandy or Marianne and they can direct you. We have a much more detailed list of assignments of each of the committees and programs within the committees to help you find whatever committee or program that you may be looking for and which one of our analysts covers that area. Again, you could also just start with, and then this is just an email link to send them an email if you have a question. Again, you can just call the office and we can look this up for you, or if you want to go through this page, etc. So, so that's just kind of the orientation to OFPR as an office. I think the most important site that you'll be interested in, or the couple of the most important, is the AFA Committee. And we have, you know, different committees, you know, the 130th, but if you're interested in historical information, that is also available. But if we just go into the 130th, so what Maureen and Marianne and Mandy will post information about the schedule, about materials that are before the committee, etc. There's a lot, the way this this website was created, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. It's to replace one that we had before that. It's not great, but we can use it to get the information up for you. The basic structure is that we just kind of provide an ongoing list of links here. And then this box has kind of the latest up-to-date stuff that we want you to be able to grab quickly, but it's also in this list of information where, say, the left is really, or looking at it to the left is really the list ongoing throughout the whole session, and then the box is just the latest things that we may want to make more available, easier for you. So these are the materials that have been posted. For example, Fund for Healthy Maine, status, the Medicaid expenditure, the reports that we just went through. I did also want to point out that this area has the financial orders that we post for you. We keep ongoing list of that. And one of the things is the Coronavirus Relief Fund allotments that we keep track of how the monies are being spent. And we keep that updated. I think Rachel updates that. We could obviously make it bigger for you to actually be able to see. So I just wanted to let you know, I wasn't going to go through any one of these things in particular, but if you want to, we can. But this is the document that we maintain that just keeps track of how the coronavirus relief funds are being spent. And Rachel updates that. I think it's at least weekly, sometimes more than weekly. But just wanted to let you know where that is. And then the financial orders that Maureen was going through that process with you before, but we keep track of those. These are COVID related financial orders. And so these are the ones for the 130th, and the ones for the 129th are under the 129th up there. These are financial orders pending 30-day wait, and the various out-of-state travel reports that you get. So this page is going to have the information that's focused on the AFA committee and what its latest meeting materials are, and also the financial orders, et cetera, that you'll be monitoring and discussing. So we try to keep that up to date and available for you to look at through this source, as well as whether we print it out and share it with you through another source. So any questions on the, I hope I'm not going too quickly, any questions on the AFA page? Do you want me to unshare or?
If you would, thank you, Chris. Any questions from the committee for Chris at this point? Don't see any.
Okay. The next page is another big one, fiscal information. I see, you can see all the pieces, debt information.
Chris, you should probably re-share your screen.
Oh, it's not.
I don't have it on my screen. Neither does Teresa.
Now?
There we go. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry. We're all still learning. Thank you for letting me know that. So I've moved on to the fiscal information page. And this is also a pretty important page for you all. Debt information, Fund for Healthy Maine, General Fund, Highway Fund, and other groupings of information. Just on other information, this is where Luke's materials are stored. So the information that he went through and keeps updated are there, along with other education that Rachel does, and other pieces of information that we keep here. So this is where the Medicaid information is, and Rachel maintains a lot of the education information there as well. The general fund section is where we keep all of our iterations of the general fund status sheet, which we're going to be going over after we do this overview. So I just as what that sheet looks like, and again, we're going to be going over this sheet in detail when we're done. So we keep track of the the general fund status for the current biennium. We're now into the halfway through the second fiscal year of the biennium. We'll be going through that sheet in a couple of minutes, but I just wanted to show you the same format where the updated version with the December revenue forecast, then the version that we did after the August forecast, then the version we did through the end of the second regular session, then the version. So these are in reverse time order, most current and getting older, the versions that we did when the governor's budget was proposed. What's the one I wanted to, so if you ever wanted to remember where we were when the governor's budget was enacted for 2021, and then that also includes a summary of the major provisions of the governor's budget, biennial budget that was done, a year and a half ago. That is always there. We go in and pull it up and try to remember what the pieces were of the budget that got enacted, et cetera. So all that cumulative information is there. The comparisons of the various iterations of the governor's budget, et cetera, are there as well. And just want to show you quickly that this is 2021, the same information for 18-19. And for 16 to 17, we also have 10-year summaries of appropriations and appropriations detail, our so-called Bible. I just want to, every page has this historical link to it because this particular website is relatively new. If you go into historical, it takes you back and you can see that information back until 2002, which is when the previous website was being maintained. So we have kept the link to the previous website platform as well as the current. So you can, as I said, spend as much time here as you like. So this one, for example, goes back to 2016, 2017 biennium, and then you can go back further if you're so inclined to look for information or ask us for it and have us go back and look for it. So this is where we'll go and find it. The other parts of this, highway fund, not as, there is an interest to you and there will be proposals, et cetera, and perhaps this year needs for highway fund from the general fund, but we maintain all the same information on the highway fund status. We generally have that in green. It's just been a standard that we've had over the years that the general fund is in blue and the highway fund is in green. And all that same historical information on the highway fund and the link to the historical on the highway fund. Luke is going to go over the Fund for Healthy Maine, but that status is generally in magenta or pink. And it's all structured the same way, but it's the same information where we keep all the iterations going through the consideration of the biennial budget and then the execution of the biennial budget, and the same for previous years, and the same allocation summaries, and the revenue forecast is important to the Fund for Healthy Maine as well, so we keep a link to the revenue forecast. So we have other pieces of information here as well. I showed you the other tax information. We keep a lot of Mark's debt information here. And we showed you the other fiscal information, tax information, and links to the taxation committee work. And then we have a kind of an all funds approach, general fund, other special revenue funds, expenditure funds, etc. Some of this needs more updating. The general fund stuff definitely stays updated. Some of the all fund stuff we do need to spend some time updating. I just wanted to show you that we keep the cash balances report here to just show what the monthly cash balances look like, and that's the 20 report. And this is the current year, but it's through September. We can update that through November. And I could spend time going through all those subjects we could at any point you like to fill out a meeting, because tracking the cash balances in the different funds, et cetera, is something that's important to what we do, but you're also of interest to the committee. So that's all in the fiscal information drop down, the publications drop down. We have the budget process document, the compendium, the fiscal note process, municipal funding report, and then also the history of all those documents is maintained there. If you ever need to jump in and get the latest budget process document that Maureen does, that is there. The other revenue forecasting committee, we maintain the revenue forecasting committee site. The executive branch does the economic forecasting commission site. So this is all the latest revenue forecast. This is the composition of the revenue forecasting committee. This is the December forecast that I'll be discussing in the status in just a second. So that's there for you anytime you need it. We still have a lot of the iterations from the revenue forecasting committee meeting up here, as well as the consensus economic forecasting committee. We have all the most recent revenue forecasts up there. The consensus economic forecast link goes to the economic forecasting committee and all of its information. Which they keep up to date on their information gathering and then historical reports. So that is there off of the consensus link. The stress test that was recently released, the first one that was for 19 through 23, the most recent stress test that was released is also at that site. We also keep a link to the DAF's monthly reports, the revenue reports that you get if you ever don't happen to have one handy. So the most recent one is the one through November. If you get those in paper, but if you also get them by email. If you want to go back and grab one that you don't have, or and this has historical for this year, and then also has links back to previous years. And then the last piece on here for revenue forecasting is the statutory authority of the Consensus Economic Forecasting Commission and the Revenue Forecasting Committee. And it's for you all to see what the authority is, and for us to keep track of what we're supposed to be doing and how frequently we're supposed to be meeting, et cetera. So yeah, we're looking for it so often till we decided to just put a link on here so that we can check to make sure that we're doing everything we need to be doing on staffing and reporting and meeting, et cetera. So all that is at one spot on the RFC page. Studies and commissions. The most recent study our office has done is the State Compensation Commission, and the report that was issued last January. So all that information is here as well. As you know, our office also staffs the Taxation Committee. So the same kinds of information that exists for the AFA Committee as far as materials and agenda, et cetera, are also kept on our site. So that is it for an overview. And we can certainly go through any of these in more detail, but it's hopefully something that's useful. If you have any suggestions for making it more useful to you, please let us know. We have sections of it that need some updating as far as updating reports, etc. And we're working on that. But if you're looking for something or something you used to see, you don't see anymore, just let us know. We can track it down and keep it updated. That is my kind of tour of the site.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Are there any questions for Chris about the website, how to use it, where to find things, that sort of thing? Not seeing any. But I think that the website has, in my time, has grown and become more and more user friendly. So I appreciate that.
And I think it will be more as important or more important with electronic meetings, that we are able to keep materials up for you all and the public to be able to look at things while you're meeting electronically. So I think we'll have to up our game to make sure that stuff is up timely in the current environment that we're in. So,
is there anything that Chris didn't cover that I see Representative Hymanson's hand up. Before I call on you, I'm just going to suggest, is there anything that Chris didn't cover, or Maureen or Luke didn't cover about how OFPR operates, how they support us, that hasn't come up you'd like to ask? Think about that while Representative Hymanson goes ahead with her question.
As we were doing this, I was navigating it through my iPhone, and I'm happy to say that it's all navigatable through your iPhone if you have it. So
you're so techie.
I don't know if I could say navigatable, but
any questions for OFPR's folks before we sign off about how they do what they do so well?
Are we going to do general fund status? Or?
Oh, yes. We're going to do that. Sorry.
I was like, whoa, wait a minute. One more topic.
Wait a minute. Sorry.
And fund for ultimate status, Luke. Don't go.
Sorry. Thank you for correcting me. Yeah, keep going.
Okay, can I share my screen again?
By all means.
Okay, is that up?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so this is, we'll just give you an overview on this status sheet for those of you who have not seen it before. So what we do with these sheets is, again, general funds, we generally use blue highlighting, is to keep track of where we are after various points in the process with the general fund status, looking at the balance that the general fund starts the biennium with, and then as it proceeds through the 2 years of the biennium, and then estimate what the balance is at the end of the biennium. So all these transits, so we're, as I said, 1.5 years into this biennium, so there's quite a bit of activity. And the blue sheet, the box at the bottom is our balance sheet. So is our updated where the balance is. Just to go through these lines, that we start with available funds, revenue. So we'll start with the December 2018 base revenue estimate when we do this on Friday for the 22-23 status. we will have the starting point be the December 2020 base revenue estimate. So we'll continue to update the 2021 status as we close out the following 6 months of this biennium. And also we'll be tracking through the process of the 22-23 biennium as we go through the biennial budget. So throughout the course of the last year and a half, we've had modifications made to that original December 2018 forecast 2 years ago, the May 2019 forecast, the 2021 biennial budget, other enacted bills in the 129th first regular session, then the December 2019 revenue forecast, then the March 2020, August supplemental, other enacted bills, and then the December revenue forecast. So you can see that we are, as these numbers are, the revenue numbers are updated either by the Revenue Forecasting Committee or by an act of the legislature, either in the biennial budget, a supplemental budget, or any other enacted bill. It adjusts the latest estimate of where revenue are. When we close the fiscal year 20, we have actual revenue, and that's the actual revenue collected. And I can get into a discussion of the accruals, et cetera, that were done in 20. But for right now, we'll just say that that's where the actual revenue are. That was the adjustment. So all these numbers are forecasted numbers and or estimated numbers, including the fiscal notes behind any of these enacted bills. And then we tie to actuals through this revenue variance line. So when we get to 21, we'll highlight in blue. The unique part of this particular sheet is that it reflects the impact of the revenue forecast that was done in December, which was a positive adjustment of 272.8 million. And I'm going to go and show you the previous forecast right before that, but you could see in August, the forecasting committee had adjusted revenue down by 527.8 million, which was a special meeting of the Economic Forecasting Commission and the Revenue Forecasting Committee to have another look at revenue. It was kind of we had done an estimate in March, and then we did another estimate at kind of, well, I can't really say the height of the pandemic because it's not necessarily was the height of the pandemic, but that we were going to be down 527.8 million. And then when we came back in December and had more updated economic assumptions from the Economic Forecasting Commission and actual revenue collections for the close of 20 and the first quarter or so of 21, we revised up that forecast. So I will go through this sheet and then I'll show you that this sheet versus previous forecast, just to get a sense of how the balanced assumption for 21 has changed. So in addition to availability of funds from revenue, we also have transfers and adjustments to balance, transfers out of the general fund, transfers into the general fund that are done through statute. And then at the close of the year, we have lapsed balances and accounting adjustments, et cetera. So sometimes the transfers that are in the biennial budget, the transfers to and from stabilization funds, either the general fund stabilization fund, or we had done transfers to main care stabilization fund, et cetera. Those are all handled here. So they're all statutory transfers that are reflected in these lines. And then these are part, this unbudgeted lapse balance of statutory adjustments are part of the closing of the actual budgets at the actual books at the end of a fiscal year. And that gives us an ongoing available resources, net available resources, which we then have the outgoing, the appropriations in the baseline from the biennial budget, and then the adjustments to that baseline in the biennial budget, then the impact of other enacted bills, and then the supplemental budget, and then other enacted bills in the 129th second regular session. So that spending is net against the available resources, and then we get this infamous blue box. So we began this biennium with $139.2 million balance from the previous year that carries into this year. There were changes, this number here, which is the difference between this number and this number, that added to, so we had in addition to 184, 144 at the close of fiscal year 20. I could show you in the various documents that original proposal was to spend of the governor's supplemental budget was to spend down that balance, but when we got to the final supplemental, it spent less and preserved more of that balance moving forward. So we were able to, that was able to get us through 20 with a negative adjustment in revenue, but also gave us some funds to carry into 21, and the negative adjustment from above, primarily because of this net drop off in revenue, is net against that balance that this is what the infamous Maureen's arrow is, to show you that this 184 carries into the next year. And then the estimate is that the balance would be negative 149.5 million for fiscal year 21. Just to kind of go through time, at the end of the second regular session, the estimate was that it was 192 and there would be a positive of 113. Then with the closing transactions, etc., that 184 dropped down to 105. And then the August adjustment, that dropped that down to minus 422. And then with the December positive of 272, that jumped back up to a negative 149. So, looking at, we've discussed this with the presentation and revenue forecasting committee, we obviously overcompensated in our negative adjustment in August, and then based on more recent experience, took that back up a bit so that the shortfall estimate was not as bad as the assumption in August of 422. So that is the general fund stats. Now we will be preparing, as I said, when we get the budget documents on Friday evening, a status sheet for 22-23, which starts at this 149 balance, negative balance, whatever the supplemental proposes to do to alleviate that negative estimate, and then what the impacts of 22 and 23 are when we use the out year estimates for revenue from the December 20 revenue estimate. So we have, as I said, we have a similar process for the highway fund. and the highway fund is in a negative position itself. There may be proposals to transfer general fund money or not, but in general, the highway fund status is the transportation committee uses similar to the way you use the general fund status. So, but we maintain it and share it with you if there is an interest in the appropriations committee. It's the same format, keeping track of the revenue forecast. They obviously had a significant negative adjustment in August to reflect reduction in gas tax revenue assumptions, and then we took that back up similarly in the December forecast. So their negative position is still negative, but it wasn't as bad as the original assumption. And then we also keep a similar set of books on Fund for Healthy Maine. Luke, do you have your own you want to put up, or you want me to just pull up the one that we have?
I have my own, Chris.
Okay, so I'll get out of mine unless anybody has any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Any questions for Chris about that status sheet? So just to add a little bit of commentary from the last session to new members is that one of the reasons we have not had to tap into our rainy day fund to close this fiscal year is because we left behind so much money in the general fund. Now, the executive branch can rely on that for the job of balancing the books, but they can't actually spend it without the authority of it being appropriated by our committee and by the legislature. So that's what the supplemental budget will codify, which is, what the administration's plan is to use available resources and fewer revenues than was anticipated to close our budget on balance or better on June 30th. So that's sort of the headline. That's what the supplemental does. Any questions before we move on to Luke and the Fund for a Healthy Maine? Okay, just to make sure everybody knows, Luke, because you might not realize you have to back up this far. Fund for Healthy Maine is the money that comes to us through the tobacco settlement. This is tobacco settlement money. That's the revenue stream. Take it away, Luke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So been a long time since I've seen you all, so thank you for having me back. So I'll step in, and before I get to looking at the actual status document, in talking to Maureen, I thought it would be worthwhile to walk through the statute for Fund for Healthy Maine just quickly to give you an idea of what this funding is. So this is the full statute that established the Fund for a Healthy Maine, and I've highlighted some areas that I think are important. First is just the sources of funds that are for the Fund for Healthy Maine. And as Senator Breen just noted, the biggest piece of the funding is the money received by the state in the settlement in a relation to a lawsuit for Philip Morris et al. This is the funding that comes in through the master settlement agreement. We always identify it as the tobacco settlement payment funding. That is the biggest piece of the funding that comes to the Fund for Healthy Maine. The fund can also receive money from any other, whether public or private, designated for deposit into it. The only other source currently is funding from the Bangor slots. That's some casino money that comes in to the Fund for Healthy Maine. There's a portion of those slots that goes straight to the Fund for Healthy Maine. And then it also gets the interest earned or other investment income on the balances in the fund. I will just quickly scoot over. This is the revenue forecasting document that we have for Fund for Healthy Maine. And I just wanted to show you this because what we just talked about are the portions that are identified here on this report. You'll see that the first group of money is the tobacco settlement payments. The base payments is the actual master settlement agreement payments. We do also have a line for one-time settlements. Every now and then there is catch up of settlements that happen within the fund, and those funds sometimes get broken out separately, which happened in state fiscal year 18 and 19. And there was, for a portion of time, additional payments Maine was receiving because of our compliance being done well. There was a separate money that was set aside specifically for a number of states who had done a good job of enforcement, and they received that money in these strategic contribution payments, but that ended with state fiscal year 2017. So we don't actually receive those anymore, but they're still on here. But then here you see the casino revenue. So this is the funding from the Bangor slots, and then the income investments. I just wanted to show you that because it orients why the revenue forecasting is broken up the way it is. It's to align with how the statute set up the funding, the receipt of funding. I also just wanted to point out a couple of other lines that are in here. One note that is often made about the Fund for a Healthy Maine is this line here that says allocations from the fund must be used to supplement, not supplant, appropriations from the general fund. It's important to point out that, of course, this is how the fund was established in statute. So that shows that the intent of the legislature when they put this in statute was to have this funding be additional funding on top of any other general fund funding for these purposes. But it's important to also note, as you who have been on AFA before and those who have been in other committees who have heard this language can be not withstood. You can do notwithstanding language essentially that would allow you to do other uses of the fund that do supplant. And that does happen from time to time. There are transfers directly from the Fund for Healthy Maine into the general fund. But I just wanted to point that out and show this is a line that's often discussed about Fund for Healthy Maine. So here's where it is in statute. And to the point I just made, there is a general fund limitation, which just basically says that funds can't be transferred or used from Fund for Healthy Maine for the general fund without specific legislative approval. And that usually, in this case, happens in a budget itself where transfer language is included to transfer funds from Fund for Healthy Maine to the general fund. The other thing I want to point out are these health promotion purposes in statute. Some of these were in the original statute. Some have been added from after 1999 when the statute was originally set up. This again is what the intent of the Fund for Healthy Maine was when the statute was originally created. But again, since it's the legislature's job to decide how you want to spend money, you have the discretion to spend this money however you want. This gives you an idea though of what the original intent of the funding was. The last thing I wanted to point out is just that with the Fund for Healthy Maine, there is a legislative committee review process. Representative Hymanson knows this well. Any bill in any committee that has an impact on Fund for Healthy Maine does go to the legislative committee that has jurisdiction over Health and Human Services to review and evaluate the proposal. When the committee, the Health and Human Services Committee, reviews these proposals, they provide back information and what their view is on the bill. But as you know, being the AFA committee, that doesn't mean that the committee that originally got the bill has to follow the HHS committee recommendations, but they're just that. They're recommendations from the committee who has jurisdiction over all this funding. So that's the basic outline of what the statute is around Fund for Healthy Maine. So here is the Fund for Healthy Maine status document. So as you can see, this one has a beautiful pink box at the bottom. So that's how we try and keep tabs on these different documents that look so very similar. As Chris noted, Fund for Healthy Maine is set up just like the others. We start with our December 2018 base revenue estimate at the top, and then work through all the revenue forecasting that occurs throughout the biennium. I'll note that with Fund for Healthy Maine, we did not have any changes. we did not have any large changes due specifically to the August 22 revenue forecast that were due to COVID. Because this funding has its own source, the only change we had to make here was we did revise the estimate for 21 up, but that was based on new information coming in about the tobacco settlement payments. So it didn't really have anything to do specifically with COVID as the other changes did. But you'll see that we have all the revenue changes here. Then we also have a section where we do adjustments to prior year balances and any lapsed funding so that we can see what the total resources are for the Fund for Healthy Maine in each year. And then just like the other items, we have the transfer section. There were no transfers in the current biennium that we identified here. And then we have what the allocations are. I don't know that Chris specifically mentioned this, but you've probably heard this many times before, but of course, the only appropriations are the general fund, highway fund, and Fund for Healthy Maine are allocations. So what we have here are the baseline allocations that were in the biennial budget. Then we have the adjustments to those that were done in the biennial budget. And then we had some other enacted bills in the first session of the 129th legislature. Nothing happened to Fund for Healthy Maine as far as other enacted bills in the second regular session. So that's where the allocation portion ended there. And you can see we began state fiscal year 20 with 49 million as a beginning balance for Healthy Maine. We spent 10.3 million more than what was available in 20. So we ended with an ending balance of 38 million. And at 21 is currently estimated to spend about 22.5 million more than available in 21, which would bring the ending balance down to about $16 million. So that is all I have for Fund for Healthy Maine.
Thank you, Luke. Any questions for Luke on Fund for Healthy Maine? I don't see any. So, and I have finally figured out how to switch between Zoom and my page with the meeting agenda on it. So I'm getting there. I believe that concludes. Thank you, Teresa, that my Madam Co-Chair helps me with keeping on task here. I believe that concludes this portion of our orientation. We, as a committee, well, thank you very much to the OFPR staff. This is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of all the material and experience that they have to bring to our work. So make sure you tap into them and all the information they have and experience. We will not be meeting this Thursday. That meeting is going to be, has been canceled. And my co-chair and I, with the input of our leads, are developing some topics, briefings for the next couple of weeks while we get our budget hearings set up. Some of you may have seen the draft plan for some of those briefings, and I just want to remind you that Maureen is in the process of inviting those interested parties and getting that stuff set up. So if you have some input, if you have some opinions you want to share with your leadership or caucus or chairs or leads, we welcome that, but it's not really ready for public distribution yet because it's still in process. Some of those, depending on the schedules, some of those topics might get rearranged or days get changed or what have you. Representative Peirce, is there anything you would like to add or any business I have forgotten about? I can't hear you. You're not on mute. It might be your.
Can you
Try
hear me
again. Yes, I can. Thank you.
Sorry, my
earbuds are not working. I just want to thank all the everyone who presented. I thought it was very thorough and there's a lot of information there, and just want to always share that there's plenty of time to go back if there's something you feel like you missed or need more detail for. But other than that, Happy New Year. And
looks like Representative Millet are you waving goodbye or are you trying to say something? I cannot hear you.
A second.
There you go. Now,
Yeah. Do you, either of you have any more updates on the budget briefing issue for Friday?
sorry, I don't. As soon as I find out, all I learned so far is Friday morning. Teresa, have you heard anything more? As soon as we do, we will let you know.
Thank you.
Sure thing. And I'll just say for other folks, even when we get a time, it can be late. Sometimes that happens. So don't be surprised. Maureen, you're back.
Hi, I never really left. I just was
Oh, good.
incognito.
Is there anything you'd like to add?
I would, if you don't mind, Madam Chair. I
Please.
just wanted to say the budget, when it gets released and posted on the Bureau of Budget's website, Marianne and Mandy have volunteered to work as quickly as they can to print those out. But they're huge. I mean, the biennial is, and I don't know about the supplemental. So we will be leaving them in your back offices for you for pickup sometime. And I'll send you an email when those are ready. But if there's anybody who is, for whatever reason, has to be under quarantine or whatever, and you have to have them mailed to you because you can't come in, let me know and we will do so. But they're big and bulky, so we don't really want to mail as a matter of course to you. So we're hoping to get some cooperation there. So if that's a problem for anybody, please let us know.
Do you have any predictions, Maureen, about when next week those books will be finished?
Marianne and Mandy have been known to work very, very fast to get those. So I'm predicting if they come out, if it gets posted on the Bureau of Budget's website on Friday during the day, it's possible we could have them Tuesday for you. But if it's posted very late in the day, they have technically till midnight, then I can't really make a prediction. But I know Marianne and Mandy have volunteered to work Saturday to get started on the copying. So
okay.
we're hoping, we always want to get those to you as fast as possible because we know how anxious you are to start pouring over them.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Anything else before, any housekeeping or anything else before we conclude? Okay. I think that is a wrap. Thank you again, everybody, for participating, and thank you to OFPR for preparing and presenting all of that. And we'll wish you all good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.